All right.
Right.
Okay. Are
We're
we?
here.
We're here. Yes. Okay.
I'll get the glasses off because the glasses
Oh,
are
welcome.
shining. What can we
So
do?
welcome everybody to another discussion. We have a wonderful topic here today, and with me I have Kamal and Shireen. How are you both?
We're doing
Uh,
well, Caroline.
yeah. Well.
Good, good. It's always good to hear. And yeah, it's a part of our wealth consciousness. The topic today, why wealth consciousness is the secret ingredient to a stronger relationship.
Mm.
So, and wealth consciousness, you might ask what that is. And I think that's
Mm.
what we need to explore as well.
Yeah.
And is there more than just money? Because I
Mm.
believe that wealth consciousness is more than just being aware of your finances, but
Mm.
finances do play a huge part in what can destroy relationships.
Hmm.
So let's see where that can take us. So, what are your thoughts, Kamal?
Well, I was just asking you, what you meant by wealth consciousness, and I think you're absolutely right. Wealth can mean several things, and it's something that we ought to explore because wealth can be wealth of knowledge, wealth of education, wealth of spiritual growth, wealth of communication, and depending on the situation, obviously the relationship that partners have, they can be extremely wealthy and extremely poor. And
Mm.
well, I'm going to quote my grandmother here, and my grandmother used to say, "Wealth is not what you have in your pocket. Wealth is up here."
So, yeah, wise words.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
So yeah, I kind of believe it's more of a mental state than anything materialistic, more than it's materialistic. Yes, you can have materialistic wealth, but the the state of being wealthy is expands much more than just of material things.
yeah, more than just money.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you say there's the spiritual aspect, there's a social aspect. How many friends? What's how deep are your relationships with
Mm.
friends, family, even with colleagues that maybe you work with, and so there is a huge. I think we've got blinkers when we hear the
Mm.
word wealth. Is what I'm
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah.
We're
That's
very
Yeah.
much
Yeah. Yeah.
blinkered,
I think
and I think we
I
need to take these blinkers
yeah.
off and
Yeah.
explore here today.
I think what we really need to think about, when I think of wealth, I think of health, right?
yeah.
And there's
Mhm.
also about what does wealth mean? Wealth means richness and abundance. That's what it
Mm-mm-mm.
means. So richness of whatever you create. So the richness of your knowledge, the richness of your relationship, the richness of your travels, the richness of life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, we use that, in the sense that we have a wealth of knowledge. They wouldn't come up with this if they didn't have a particular meaning, which is it is a richness of something, it's an abundance
Yeah.
of something. So when we think about it, and often because we are probably living in more of a scarcity mindset, we automatically think of wealth in relation to money, right?
Yeah.
But what we forget is that money is really our own net energy field, which means money is all about our mind and the way we use energy in order to create something new or to create something that's going to give us a return in some form.
Mm.
So when we have a relationship, our abundant relationships are where we have give and take relationships, where we feel blessed and wanted, and where we know that we give that same feeling to someone else. So there's a definite reciprocal aspect of wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense that if we want to find more knowledge, or we go into discovering knowledge, we will start to feel the sense of abundance that comes from that just by exploring and thinking, oh, wow, there's so much out there. I can go and look and explore and find what I'm interested in. I think the real thing is to get to that word, what it means for each and every one of us. What does it mean? And most of us come into the world with no money.
Mhm.
And in fact, a lot of people can be incredibly wealthy with no money. They can have money that's always there, and yet they have no, what they call wealth, but they can live in that abundant state where they receive. Because they are good receivers, they are able to receive, but they also give back, which that reciprocal, because you won't get if you don't also give back, right? So I think we need to really look at what's our relationship with money, what's our relationship with where real abundance sits is our relationship with people, because money only comes from people at the end of the day. People, it's created, and it is about it's a relational thing to something else. It's basically one of those things which we aspire to because we think it gives us what we want. But often, most people that are rich don't live very caged lives.
It doesn't necessarily bring happiness, does it?
It doesn't bring happiness,
No, no.
and it actually doesn't always bring freedom.
Mm.
There's a level at where you have a certain amount of money where it actually doesn't bring freedom. How many people that are wealthy now have to spend a lot of time, really wealthy, spend a lot of time trying to keep that money or keep themselves safe because people want it.
It's a good
So
point. Yeah.
there's
You
another aspect we've got to think about. And we also know that there's a level at where we can be happy, and after that it doesn't give us the same level of happiness.
true. You're reminding me now actually of I don't know if you've heard it or you know the story. It's the story about it is said and reported about Alexander the Great when he died. So on his deathbed, he called all of his generals and told them three things, which he then explained. He said, "These are my last wishes, my death wishes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want the best doctors only to carry my coffin." And I want all of the wealth that I've accumulated, whether it's money, gold, precious stones, whatever it is, I want it to be scattered along the procession to the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And my third wish is I want my hands to be let loose and hanging outside of the coffin for everyone to see.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, a very surprising three wishes by Alexander the Great. So one of the generals surprised and like wondering that and saying, like, I mean, this is quite an unusual request from Alexander. And so Alexander explained to him, or to them in general, he said, I want to be carried by the best doctors. I want my doctors to carry my coffin so that it demonstrates that no matter what, in the face of death, even the best doctors have no power to heal you. I want the road to be covered with all my treasures, everything that I've accumulated, so that everybody understands and sees that material wealth that you acquire on this earth or on this realm stays on earth. And I want my hands to be swinging like from my coffin for everyone to see it, so that people understand that we come in this world empty-handed and we leave this world empty-handed um, after most of our precious belongings and treasures are exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that represents time.
Yeah.
And so the further explanations is that we do not take to our grave any material wealth. Although our good deeds are like, well, in old times we used to have travelers' checks, right? So the good deeds, the deeds that you do in life are your wealth throughout life because they go on forever. And since time is the most precious treasure that we have because it is limited. We can produce as much wealth as we want to, but not as much as we want in that time that we have.
That's lovely. That's really
Oh,
sort of
quite wise words,
pause for thought. Yeah, it's like, yeah, really,
yeah.
really very deep sort of in that. And so it's worth sort of really listening to that, because I like that about the doctors. Yeah, they don't have that power to keep him alive. At some point we die,
Yeah.
that is part of what happens. That is a
Mm.
cycle of life. And this whole thought that we mustn't die at all costs, you've got to keep them alive, but at what cost? is that
And you
is
think
that
of it like
really?
it, yeah, I mean this whole story, I mean, think of Alexander the Great, the amount of land and precious and wealth that he accumulated, and all of that he decided to leave it because that's not wealth. It wasn't wealth to him. He wanted people to understand time is your wealth. How you communicate with people is your wealth. Love is your wealth. What we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's right. And time is a very important aspect
Mhm.
of wealth,
Yeah.
because how many people actually have that freedom to do what they
Mm.
want when they want?
Yeah.
Or
Mm.
have you got the pressures of deadlines? You've got to get certain things done, to bring money in, or for a job, or even for a business. Are you sort of pressured in that way? So again, and this can have an impact
Hmm.
on pushing couples apart,
Mm.
because they don't have time for each other.
Yeah.
So are you, what is your wealth in terms of your time for each other? How much time can you spend together? Or is it, oh, I can't afford that right now. I can't afford that time. And it's not just with your partner, it's with your family, your
Hmm.
children. And so really look at what is your time wealth. So again, maybe as a couple, it is looking at all these different areas and having a look at what your values are around them,
Mm.
and see whether or not you have the same value.
Mm.
Is time your top value, or is money your top value, or is our relationships? Because if you don't match, then there's going to be conflict, because you're going to be working towards time. You want more time, and the other person's going to be working towards wanting more money. You need to be able to pull together, and this is where your relationship can get stronger.
Yeah.
Is where you actually work on your wealth consciousness. So are you
Yeah.
conscious of what you think of wealth as, and what is
Mm.
important to you as
Mm.
being wealthy, and then work together on it, so you come in alignment and strengthen that bond and work together.
Mm.
So yeah, so again, it's coming down to that beautiful question: what is wealth?
Mm.
Yeah.
What is wealth? And so there are, as we've said, lots of different areas, and time being a really important one. And I think health was mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Health is key, because without health, I don't think you've got wealth in any form, you know.
You've got to be able to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
You know, I,
Yes.
sp- I suppose we've got to think of wealth and level of happiness, right?
Mm.
How wealthy we are in if we look at the wheel of life, which I think I know that most of us will probably do in our sort of assessment of people. The wheel of life pinpoints certain areas in all around sort of roughly eight, sometimes 12 different sort of
Mm,
relational areas that we have in life. And basically, wealth is just one area, right? There could be 11 others or seven others, but they all contribute to that wealth consciousness. And I think what's really important, if it's no use being wealthy and having a lot of money and you're alone, right?
Mm.
Because we are not designed to be alone. We are put here so that we can be part of other, right? We are always
mm,
seeking our other half, which is ourself, really. And we're always in this place of
Mm.
worrying. We're fighting our dark and our light side, which is one is kind of the sense of our expansiveness and our togetherness part, and then the other one that's always about separation. And these things are really important. And I think when we talked about it, when you mentioned the word wealth consciousness, Carol Ann, it took me back into the idea, over the past couple of weeks, I've been doing another beta course on positive intelligence, which I'm already doing anyway, but I'm already qualified in it. But what I have really been noticing, and I'm thinking in regards to relationships, thinking in regards to how conscious are we in our everyday today, right? Part of really being conscious of, for example, I was noticing, I was looking at my teeth and I thought I was brushing my teeth really well. And then I kind of went away this weekend and I saw my teeth, really close up, one of these magnifying things. And I thought, oh my God, I haven't brushed my teeth properly. I would be living in this illusion, right? And what I started to do was quietly just sit down and start really brushing very slowly, very gently, and being very conscious of each tooth that I was brushing. What was really interesting, yes, it cleaned up my teeth, but the sense of peace and calm that I got from that sense of wealth I got from that was about my body saying, hey, I'm taking care of you, right? So a consciousness and just being aware of little moments of consciousness, because most of our life, we are unconscious. Most of what we do is unconscious. But we do have these moments where we will sit and be truly conscious. And in those moments, those are the wealth moments. Those are the moments where we can stack up that feeling of happiness so that we then take more care of our health. We take more care of our wealth in the sense of money, and we take more care of our relationships, because our key relationship is our relationship with ourselves, right? And once we get that, then all of a sudden there's a natural spillover to how we have relationships with other and with the other things and other people, right? And other animals, whatever, with any other. And I think that was something that I really became aware of over the past 3 weeks while we've been redoing this course again. And it was such a powerful lesson to be reminded how we live in this unconscious so much, and how we can build that wealth consciousness just by paying attention in awareness and being committed to doing it regularly, really being committed to doing it regularly.
You remind me, I did an exercise similar to that when I was told by my mentor when we were studying NLP and coaching, and it was an exercise to explore certain tastes and smells as if you're doing it for the first time, so that you can put yourself when, let's say you get a client and they want to quit smoking, and then 10 days later you get another client that wants to quit smoking, so that you don't have that mentality, oh, it's the same thing, I know what I'm going to do, right? And I did that same exercise that you did with your teeth, which is I do every day. So I have this timer toothbrush, obviously, and it's divided into 2 minutes, and it's 30 seconds for each row. So I have 30 seconds to go properly through each of my teeth. Anyway, sorry, ADHD. We did that exercise with food, right? You're talking about being conscious and aware of everything that you're doing, and which I would call more of a holistic approach to wealth, because you're trying to be aware of what you eat, the tastes. You take that whole journey of let's say you're having your coffee in the morning. You smell it, and then you take that first sip and you can imagine, oh, the bean, and how did it get there? Or I grinded it, and where did it come there? It came from a bean, and it came from a bean bag, and what route did it take? Oh, this bean is from, let's say, Ethiopia, so it had to travel all the way from Ethiopia. And what happened before that? And was it on the bush? And then you take the whole journey of that bean until it reaches your mouth, so that you have a little bit more time to process the taste and the flavor and the smells, obviously. And you do that with everything. Another thing that people don't pay attention with is, like, people just breathe because they have to breathe, because they're born and ready to breathe. They don't pay attention on how they're breathing.
Yeah.
And in most cases, people breathe from their chest, which is very wrong, while they should be breathing from their stomach, like expanding your diaphragm and then slowly exhaling, right? But people don't pay attention to that. And so the same thing, that same approach of paying attention every now and then to your breathing, where, oh, wait, how am I breathing? Oh, the chest. Okay, well then take just a couple of minutes to remember that you have to breathe through your stomach, and it becomes then some sort of habit, right? And that you have a prosperity of oxygen, you have a prosperity of taste buds that overflow.
I am going to put a caveat in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something which was really interesting when we did a little group call after one of the things is some people were doing exactly what we were saying, creating a habit. But in itself, creating a habit frees our mind so that we
Yes.
can wander.
Yeah.
So we got to stop. When we find our mind wandering, we have got to come back to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that is really tricky because we get seduced. Like you're saying, oh, I'm going to Ethiopia, and I'm going, oh, we're going way there. But what about just brushing the teeth?
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
definitely.
feeling that tooth being brushed. So I'm being really honest there, but I think that this is something so important when we look at relationships and we are talking to someone, because we were talking about wealth consciousness and relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is about how do we really pay attention to how someone is relating, and how are we relating? What is their interpretation of us or their sense of us, so that we can feel it and go, oh, okay, that's interesting that they're experiencing this, but I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. You know, being able to be open, because the moment we stop and we start to build those neural networks, the easier it is to be able to receive information that might initially come across as criticizing.
Yeah.
It's
Which
easier
is
to,
exactly what people fall into, right?
exactly. So it's easier then to have this wealth of a sense of self that we go,
Yeah.
oh, right, this is just interesting, right?
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with me here. I'm okay, but I'm curious as to why they're feeling this. If it's something that I'm doing, then I can change this. I can moderate this because I love this person, right?
Right.
And that's where the wealth comes in, because we've got the wealth of that love and that the capacity, the wealth of knowledge and
Yeah.
the understanding with which to draw and create a deeper relationship.
And I
I
think
think the key
this
word
coming,
that you
what
used here, sorry, Carl, the key word was you said it is curiosity.
because that curiosity, because it's sort of, there's two things sort of, but the same thing happening here in terms of what you were saying, Kamal, about the background to the coffee
Yeah.
and the coffee bean, and it's like going back where it started from, and so what's it been, its journey, what's been its life travel, and what you're saying, Shireen, about what do people bring to a relationship. It's what, what's their background, and in terms of the money mindset, it's like, what are their beliefs that they've brought to this relationship? If you're not conscious of them, they again drive where you're going with wealth or financially, and then it is, I think it was mentioned at the beginning, scarcity mentality. Many come in with that scarcity mentality, and you can see it in many ways. And it's not just with money, in terms of there's that anxiety, so you'll hang on to it. But there's also a fact that you could just keep on spending and spending, because, just keep on doing that. But there's your limiting beliefs
Yeah.
that you have around money. This whole, remember this saying, like, money doesn't grow on trees.
Oh, I know that one.
Like, where did that come from? But
I think
again,
quite
it's
a few of us grew
nothing
up with
comes
that
from
saying,
nothing.
right?
that's right. So, but again, each partner brings their own background of beliefs, whether it's something they've heard, something they've come to believe through experience, or something they've grown up with and been taught. But again, if there's that difference, so it comes down to, as you were saying, Shireen, becoming very aware And that comes down to communication
Yeah.
and how good at you are sitting down and communicating with your partner. And this is something we always end up talking about, isn't it? That always comes into it, is that communication. And this is important, being able to get to know what is in the background. What do you bring to that partnership? Because that's what it is. It's a partnership, a relationship. It's a partnership. It's about being able to come together and not have to necessarily change each other to conform to your way of thinking or to your beliefs. It's about understanding and honoring and going, well, what actually works for us here, and coming together with a shared goal. You know, what is it you actually want? So you come together in that way and then look at, well, okay, are my beliefs supporting this? And if they're not, do something about it. But it is that consciousness, isn't it? It's coming into that moment, that consciousness, and seeing what's there, and change your mindset if it needs to be changed. So
and I like something that you say, Caroline, is you're a writer, right? And I don't know whether that's something that you might want to add more on, but I have this idea that I really truly believe that once we start to write and write things down, it gives us time to process. And the outcome of what we've written, you know, after a while, it really calms our brain down, but it gives us something tangible that we see in an output that then we can utilize. And I think for me, that's something that I really so admire about you, is particularly because you do a lot more writing than I probably do. And I would love you to talk more about that. How do you write and grow rich, for God's sake? Tell us.
Well, it's about moving
how does
first
that
and
work?
then writing, because if you're
Exactly. And how
stuck,
does that work within relationships, you know? So to
absolutely,
bring it around and do that. I'd love to hear.
yeah. Well, it's the key word. The initial word is move, because you know, if you're stuck in a certain way of being, but then yes, it's moving, and then it's freeing up that writing and being able to express it. But yeah, writing it out, actually physically writing it, not typing, but physically writing it, connects you with your inner soul and your higher self, and it brings in that spiritual quality. So again, that brings in that wealth and helps connect you with the actual feeling of the words that you're using. We have a wealth of words in the English language. We are so rich with the amount of words that we've got, and we only use a fraction of them. So again, are you, what's the word poor, that you stumble over how to say something, so you actually resort to the same thing all the time, and which means you're not getting through, you're not communicating. So but certainly writing and expanding your vocabulary is a great way for you to grow richer, because you can then explain what you're talking about. You can find different ways you can reach, you can connect with other people, and you can then connect with your partner. And actually writing a letter or writing a note to your partner has something, because it's got your energy in it. And if it's a note of love, they'll feel that love. It's in the words, it's in the fabric of just picking up paper or whatever it is you've written on, and they can feel it come through. So again, it strengthens your relationship. So certainly finding ways. And if you're not someone who writes, I mean, I've never usually enjoyed writing. It's something I've been working on, and it's freeing it up. And there's something magical. And I'm finding it magical in terms of supporting others with their writing, and the joy that they have in reconnecting with something that they lost. Being able to find words again that they hadn't used for a long time, or even words that they've never used, and suddenly they're saying something in a different way. They're writing something in a different way that just has some magical quality about it. And there's a joy. And I'm in and out of that with that joy at the moment. I'm still working on actually finding a love of writing.
Mm.
I realized that the other year when I heard somebody say how much they love writing, and I went, oh, and I just cried because I just thought, I don't love writing. I love maths. I'll just sit and down and do a maths puzzle or anything to do with maths. I'll just do it, no matter what
Yeah.
anything else going on or I need to do. Writing, that doesn't have that same pull, and yeah, I'm working on it because I know that there is something magical that can happen when I find that more and more and are able to really fully be in that. So thank you for asking that question, Shireen, because it is important. Being able to write, being able to expand your vocabulary and express yourself fully. So again, it's, can you sit down together? Does one of you have more wealth of words and expression than the other? How can you support each other in that way rather than making one feel uncomfortable? Because again, how can it can strengthen it with bringing you together in finding those words that really connect and help you to be understood. Because it's that when you're not understood, you just feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel frustrated, you get angry, and other times you're just like, might as well give up. So there's resignation creeps in, and then you're just on this downward spiral. So certainly writing is something that you can work together with, because actually there's a healing journey in finding that writer within, unlocking that writer within. There's a huge healing journey, and it heals relationships, because that's what I found is by working with someone with their writing, we've worked with relationships as well, and relationships have started improving. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I think it's about processing, isn't it? There's something about levels of processing that then start. I mean, I think all of us have heard so many words in our lifetime, and even if you're young, you are exposed to a lot of words. And often we, as you were saying, Caroline, most people tend to use a limited number or a limited amount of words in their day-to-day vocabulary. But, you know, I think when they're thinking about writing or doing things, I think one of the things that really helped me certainly think about what I'm doing is answering questions. I like to answer questions. Maybe that's just my perfectionist streak, right? I like to answer questions. And so I find that when questions are asked, I can start to write. And then it frees my mind to wonder. So for me, that's my wondering tool. And if you have another question, then you start to do that. And then you start to ask, as long as these questions are starting to take you deeper and deeper and deeper. In NLP, we have what we call logical levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as we write, or as you start to talk about things, you might start on the surface, but wealth really happens is when we go below the surface, right? When we start to go deeper and get to our core, get to the things that are important to us. So in relationships, we have to get to the core of what it is that we want together. What is it that we want for each other, right? Not just for the collective as a we, but what can we be as an I in this we, which is really important, because we have to be able to live and identify and live in that space for ourselves. And then also know that we have these shared agreements or these shared ways of being that are directed towards a future, right? So otherwise, why would you be in a relationship, right? If it's not about creating something that's going to be long lasting to some degree. Even if it's a 1 minute relationship of talking to someone at a counter, right? Even that 1 minute relationship can have a future effect on them later on and a future effect for you. So we leave a legacy when we have this capacity to create a wealth of relationships, right? That's our legacy. So I never forget a day I had I remember I went to a shop where someone had said to me, basically he was gonna fix something for me, but I could see he wasn't really wanting to do it straight away. So I said, okay, well, whenever, if is it possible today? Yeah, I'll do it today. But then when I went to get the thing, he was being battered or badgered by another customer for about 20 minutes. And when she left, I went in, I spoke to him, and I'd been waiting there. And I said, and he said, I haven't done it. So I said, oh, okay. Will you be able to do it today at all or not? And he just saw red, because all his resources, having this customer that was before,
Mm.
gone. And he just gave me the thing back and told me to go, right? And I was walking down the street thinking, wow, he was very rude. What was going on there? And as I stopped, I thought, what could I have done differently that would have changed that whole thing? And what I didn't do was have rapport with him. I had asked about my pan instead of first going and saying to him, wow, I am so proud of you. I don't know how you managed to handle that woman in such elegance and grace.
Mm.
Because if I had done that first, he wouldn't have given me my pan back, and he would have done it even if it was at a later time. But he wouldn't have left feeling, he wouldn't have felt unheard, uncared for in some strange way. So it was really interesting going away and thinking, oh, what could I have done differently to have got a different result? And so it's just so interesting to kind of think that 1 minute communication, that one moment of richness, of being rich in abundance myself. I've got plenty of time. Let's give some grace here, would have been the difference for this human being. The shop's closed down now, but it's really interesting how that may have been so different. So yeah, this is the wealth of communication, right?
I'm loving that wealth of communication, obviously, of
Yeah.
communication and the prosperity part, and obviously the purpose. I'm looking at it in relationship as well from a purpose perspective. You were both discussing about the communication and how belief systems and limiting beliefs, and do you have enough uh, time on your hand, and can you have the correct words to express your abundance of understanding, right? And the same thing, obviously, in relationships, when I'm thinking, we talk about, I mean, we say one should talk about their values and their belief systems and all of that, their beliefs, as in not religious, obviously, but their beliefs and limiting beliefs that are stopping them to achieving their greatness. And the same thing should be about their approach to wealth, since we're talking about wealth and relationships, right? What is wealth for them? How do they see their communication being stronger and wealthier with words, whether with understanding? And I'll go back to something you mentioned earlier, Shireen, which was the word curiosity. And for me, if you don't have curiosity in a relationship, if you, no matter how long you are in, you lose
Mm.
that wealth in a sense. If you are curious in every situation to ask questions, like you last like being asked questions. I enjoy being asked questions as well, Shireen. You know, it's you ask me a question, then I'll ramble on. um, it's that curiosity of asking your partner, um, how do you see this? How do you want this? How can we do this together? And the other part, which you mentioned as well, is that having the wealth of words to be able to come together and also expect your partner or tell your partner in a very communicative way, well, this is me, I want to be that way, and I see my wealth in this part. However, we can have a shared wealth agreement, a consciousness about whether it's financial wealth, whether it's a mental awareness approach to our financial situation right now and the future, if we're talking about financial. And we can add on to it more things like the gratitude that we've spoken about, right? Being grateful for, um, for one another, for the positivity that we can foster in each other's life, whether in the contributing factor of doing it as a couple and at the same time as doing it as separate entities, because we are not. One of the mistakes, obviously, and you mentioned it a little bit, Shireen, I think Caroline as well, is that people identify themselves in a couple as being in a couple. They stop identifying themselves as being individuals. And for me, this is a massive mistake, because you are an individual before you are a partner. It is a role that you play. It's part of who you are, but it's not the essence of who you are. We want people in our surroundings to be social, to be living with others and enjoy our time and have that wealth of positivity around us, that wealth of communication and resources, right? And so we also shouldn't kind of neglect that individual wealthness that we ought to have for ourselves. Yes, it is in relationships, but this is part of a relationship, is being able to say, I need my time for me, without the partner being annoyed or, nah, you're gonna go alone. Like, you have to accept that you're separate entities. And that's a lot of that contributes to the lack of wealth in the relationship, in my opinion. Once you can accept that, once there comes a deeper connection, which is that spiritual wealth factor, right? That's then that spiritual angle comes into play, where you're conscious that you're involved with each other. At the same time, you're conscious that you are a separate person that can have their own dreams and aspirations. And on top of that, your partner will support you, and vice versa, you will support the partner.
Absolutely. And that was something I was thinking, when you said about yeah, as an I in this we. And it is remembering that you are a person in your own right, and so is your partner, and allowing them to have their dreams and aspirations, and them as together as a couple. What have you got? Is it one at the expense of the other, or is it both of you heading off in your own two directions, or is there something that also can bring you together? So there is this we, and there is this two separate, these identities as I in it, and that is important. So yeah, totally hear what you're saying there, Kamal. And I think, Shireen, you said about, was it the I?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So it is important. And I think it's also important to recognize that maybe sometimes one of you will earn more than the other. And how are you with that? Because when I was married, there was a point when I was earning more than my ex-husband. And
You're very hard.
Yeah. And of course, that's a long time ago now. So in those days, and I don't know if it's actually changed much at all. It may have, or it may be some shift, but there'd still be elements of it. And it is being comfortable with, okay, maybe the woman does earn more than the man. It did get to a point where he did end up earning more than I did, because he was able to progress. And that was through me actually supporting him with sitting the exams that he needed to sit, because that was something he left school without any qualifications. And he just did how many jobs he did in it. So many, literally loads of different jobs. He went from one to another, but then eventually settled in the police force. And even that was a struggle. There were times when he wanted to leave, but he chose not to. And he often would say it was always about them up, higher than him, and complaining about them. And I used to say to him, well, you can't complain about them until you're up there with them.
Yeah.
And I knew he was capable of sitting the exams and passing them. And I used to support him with that. And he did. He eventually took it a couple of times. He took to do his sergeant's exams. And then I said, right, so once he got his sergeant's exams, I said, right, get your inspectors. Doesn't matter, once you've got it under your belt, it's there. And because he always had this, oh, they won't promote me, I'm too mouthy. But you don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And actually, he did eventually make inspector. And yes, you did. His salary went way beyond mine. So, and it's being comfortable with that and not having that sort of, it's recognized the beliefs that you've got that
Yeah.
can cause a problem there. And it's just accepting the situation and how can we work together with this?
Yeah.
But he often used to say I was too ambitious for him. And my ambitions and where I wanted to go, it wasn't always that supportive. I felt like I had to fight for it. And but maybe that was something in me that enjoyed the fight. I don't know, because I think since that's gone, there's a part of me is going, well, do I need something to fight, someone to fight against? So I don't know. That's something else I've been working on. It's like generating my own desire and, just get it, just do it. But yeah, so that, what you said about also wealth and communication, I love that. And I love the way you got curious, Shireen, and said, well, how could I have handled that better? Because it's taking responsibility for your part in the breakdown in that moment. And being able to do that as a couple, take responsibility for your part in it, sit and get curious. Well, what could I have done differently? What did I do that maybe promoted that behavior? And it actually reminded me of something that happened yesterday. And it just left me feeling really grateful and happy because I was in Sainsbury's and there was, I wanted some cracker bread and there was none on the shelf. And there was this lady, she was stacking the shelves and she had this couple of trolleys with boxes of, the different crackers and everything. And I said to her, oh, have you got any cracker bread? And she said, oh, I don't think so. And then eventually she found it. It was right at the bottom. And she said, oh, this is going to take me a while to get this off. She said, and I said, well, I got around to know it's going to take a long while to get all of this off. I said, do you know what? It doesn't really matter. I've got enough to last a few days. I can always come back. And then she looked again and she started prodding it. And then she actually got into the box and pulled out one box of cracker bread. And I said, oh, thank you. That's all I need. And it was just such a delightful, happy moment. And I was just so grateful to her. And as we said, where there's a will, there's a way. But it was that being willing to just walk away and say, okay, doesn't matter, not make her say, no, I want it now, and so, yeah, but there is that different outcome that can come. And the joy and the gratitude I felt in my heart for her just taking that extra step just to have a look and see if she could get. And all I wanted was one box. We didn't need the whole big box of them all to come out off the trolley, So yes, certainly the power of communication. There's a wealth in that, because how it can leave you feeling is the wealth. It's that wealth of your emotions.
Yeah.
We have such a plethora of emotions, and which ones are the really wealthy ones to hang around in more than others, So again, what's your emotional wealth like?
Yeah.
That's something to explore.
And I love that. You want to hang around in it. What emotions do you want to hang around in and be chilled in and be happy in? I thought it was lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making my day. I'll be thinking about that for a good while.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest. I really love that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I lost my train of thought because I got there and that was it. I was already flowing in all those hormones.
Lovely, yeah.
Happy
And actually, I just bring in that
I lost my mind for a second.
Lost your mind for absolutely beautiful. But it's I love Maya Angelou's quote. Do you know that one where people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, it's a really important. We need to have that so firmly imprinted on our hearts and on our minds, because it's the one thing that makes the biggest difference, isn't it?
So did you get your train of thought back? If you were to get that
No,
train
it's
of thought
gone.
back, it's gone.
It'll probably come back in a minute, but I'm not too. Obviously, it was not something I have to be attached to, and that's quite a
Yeah.
good thing. No, actually, what I did remember. Thank you, Caroline, for bringing it up. When we talk, because I did a lot of work and have done a lot of work around imposter syndrome, and particularly with pregnant women, busy professional pregnant women going off work and now perhaps having less of a salary than they would have had before. And you have a situation where husbands get promoted. And we know that the wealth is still predominantly in male hands rather than in female hands. It is changing slightly, but it's not changing fast enough. And I think society as a whole, evolution took a long time, and it does take a long time. So, beliefs and things are also going to take a little while until we can really get to a critical mass that we can actually show that, wealth distribution is something that we could all have equally and have rights to. But I think until then, but certainly when you talked about, initially being comfortable with what we're earning as a woman, as a man, and if that changes, how are you going to manage that? How are you going to navigate that? And you said something which was so important, is your husband felt that your ambitions were too high for him, right? So what I got was, and I don't know, this may be my thing, that he didn't have an ambition going ahead and you had an ambition for him, right? Or whether that was an ambition for yourself, right? But it's really important, I think, to clarify that we may want people to do the best and become the best of what they want, but we must have no attachment to it. We go into a relationship loving them for who they are. And we really need to pay attention. Where are we pushing and where are we pulling? And how do we pull them? How do we help people pull them towards where they want to go or where they feel they want to go, but not that we push them? Because I don't think that's very helpful. I think we end up creating dysfunction in relationships when we do a lot of push instead of pull. Carmel, you've gone off.
Yeah, what?
I
I
had
heard
muted
Mike's
something.
myself.
working.
I knew he was going to come in with something there.
Yeah. I muted myself by mistake, and then it's a touch mute button. So anyway, I was saying like you're talking about that people. That's the biggest mistake, obviously, that people all do when they get into a relationship. One of the big mistakes is that they get into a relationship with expectations already. Let's take the common ones. A man like this is it's a saying, old one, and it's still valid because usually relationships happen that way. A man enters a relationship believing that he will continue living the way he lived. A woman enters a relationship believing that she will change the man. I'm taking the simplest and most common example of things, right? And you set up expectations already. And when you're talking about that, we're talking about wealth, ambition, possibilities, openness, lack of openness. These are all expectations that we all have once we enter a relationship. And when you're talking about detaching from these ambitions and feelings for the other person, not pushing, right? The difference between pushing and pulling, and allowing, giving the basically presenting something to your partner where, okay, you seem that to be good at this. Here are the reins. I can give you a few hints and calls. I know somebody that does that. Do you want a helping hand or on your own? Do you want to do it? You don't want to do it, and basta. You just let it be at that, right? That's where people forget to stop. They keep on, oh, come on, you do this, and it, which is fine because if you're a parent, you want the best out of your children, right? You push them to the maximum. You tell them, here, you're good at this, push yourself, do this, be better. But in relationships, there is more of the expectation of the partner because you are giving in so much from your time, from yourself, from your wealth of knowledge and information and time and all of that, that you expect them to do that. And they don't. In your case, Caroline, the answer was like, you're too ambitious for my liking, right? In other cases, it's stop nagging. In other cases, it's I don't want to do that. Why are you pushing me to do this? I want you to be better. Well, I don't want to. And you see that growth wealth is non-existent, or it's lacking in that situation as well, I believe.
Growth wealth, that personal development growth you're talking about. Yeah, that's a wealth in itself.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, when I started on that journey, it was something, when I first found Brain Gym and educational kinesiology, and it was just like this whole different world opened up, and you start to get to know yourself in a different way, and you start to get to realize how multifaceted we are. There's so many different aspects to us, and there's a whole wealth of ways and perspectives of actually getting to know yourself and different aspects of yourself, and actually becoming more comfortable with yourself. And so that in itself is certainly a wealth. And as I'm speaking, I'm realizing I am quite wealthy in that respect. And I think this whole conversation is helping me to realize different aspects of where I'm wealthy.
We're abundant.
We are abundant,
Yes.
yes.
And personal development really is, I'm really quite wealthy in that. And I'm aware that I keep looking at what I still could be doing, what I haven't done, and other things that keep opening up, and feeling, I guess, not wealthy. But actually, through this conversation, it's helped me to become much more conscious of how wealthy I am already. And does that mean that there's no more wealth I could accumulate in that area? No. Absolutely. And again, it's getting curious. Where else can I get? And what other ways can those other wealth areas support me in that? It's like bringing together, where am I perhaps not as wealthy as in other areas? So again, it's like doing that wheel of life. You actually do a wheel of wealth. So you break down that one sector into a wheel in itself, and into all the different sections that you can be wealthy. And how wealthy are you? Do you feel or see yourself? And which one? And again, it's going to perhaps maybe the one that's less that might improve the others. You never know. And notice which one you're always focusing on as being wealthy. So again, are you so blinkered? Go back to that blinkered state of, this is the only thing I think of as being wealthy. So
and that's really interesting, because Carol Ann in the Feminine Power, Claire Zammit always talks about the season, what's in season. And to really focus on what's in season, not because often when we're stuck, when we feel we're not getting anywhere, and we have lots of wealth, we often don't focus on what's in season. So sometimes the really crazy things are, for example, if you are focusing on money, for example, but really what's in season is relationship with your partner, or relationship with others, whatever the relationship is, or it may be something about self-care, right? What's in season, when you start to kind of listen and talk to your body and get a consciousness that's going on, that wealth consciousness, what happens is it tells you, when you focus on that, you're going to get this, right? Because they're all connected. They're all connected to you. They're just strings of energy that we are not tapping into, that would give us and catalyze us where we need to go. So I think we really need to think about, don't be frightened of going into those places which are in season, because they're going to give us the biggest boost. They're going to give us and open the space for new things to come in that will then bring in that extra wealth. Maybe it's creating something where you're more outgoing, and all of a sudden you meet someone that all of a sudden gives you, wow, a great lead, It's that kind of thing. So nothing is ever not connected. So don't be afraid. Go for what's in season, what feels like it's calling you. Pay attention to that, and then you'll see things change, and the wealth will change. whatever it is, whether it's wealth of communication, wealth of knowledge, we've talked about so many things, wealth of emotion. I think we just need to really realize it's a sea of abundance that we lie in.
It is. It
And it's
is.
which boat do we want to float right now? You see where my metaphor is.
Yeah. Isn't it?
I'm thinking about it's just like because we're coming close, so I'm thinking about a quote to leave the audience with. And in my head, I've got two, and it comes from Stoic philosophy. Um, one from Epictetus and the other one from Seneca. But I think I'm going to go with the Epictetus. Um, Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. So accept people and like accept life's obstacles calmly and remain in control of what you can control and have the self-discipline um, about those things that you can influence. And with that, you are abundant in wealth.
Well, I think I'll finish with something which I really love, and I think it's something I'll pay more attention to because we've talked about it.
Yeah.
We've really talked about energy and the wealth of energy. So I want you to just think about money in an acronym of my own net energy yield, right? My own net energy yield.
I like that one.
Our emotions are what draws things to us. That's our energy yield. Our emotions are our energy. So whatever takes energy or drains your energy is not going to give you happiness, right?
Energy.
We need to be happy first in order for our energy to be abundant and flowing so that we can have whatever it is that we want. Good relationships, good health, good wealth, whatever, money, whatever it is, richness. We need to pay attention to my own net energy yield and check it out every day.
Yeah, love that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. No, certainly. What's in season? Wealth of energy. What is your wealth of energy? And there's just a couple of quotes I'd love to leave people with. And one is by Henry David Thoreau. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life.
Yes.
It's just that simple. I just thought that's awesome. And then Michael Beckwith, he says, your wealth consciousness is your ability to see beauty and possibility in everything around you.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. so awesome. So
and that last one, Mary Angelou, right? People will always remember how you make them feel.
Yes.
So emotions again, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely key.
Emotional.
So and if there's anything that we've not covered here that you'd like to know, then just pop some questions into the comments, and thank you for listening. And we're here Monday to Friday, 1 o'clock, and with all sorts of different topics and angles around relationships or personal growth or anything like that. And if there's any topics you'd like us to discuss, then please let us know. And if you'd like some support in actually being able to work with this in relationships or in your life, then reach out to us. You can find us on the website Hope Springs Eternal Introduction Agency, hseia.coaches is where you'll find us, and you can reach out and get in touch with us. And we're also, all of us are on Facebook or LinkedIn. Kamal's got his website. I've got
my website and my handle as well.
Yeah. And Shireen, yours is
SharonLoveGroup.com. That's fine.
Yes. And mine is going to be moveRighTandGrowRicher.com. I have that website being developed, so sometime be able to get me there, but I am on Facebook. So do reach out if you want some support, because being able to work your way through this is really important to strengthen that relationship. And you don't need to do it on your own. again, is there a belief you have to do everything on your own? Question that. Get curious and say, well, what could I do with support? How much
Yes.
further could we get together?
And not just AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to have a human.
Oh, lovely. So love you all. Love to see you
Bye-bye.
again. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.